Yeah, welcome to the show, Steve, and
Thank
it's
you.
a great pleasure to have you on BCFM.
Nice to talk to you, John.
Yeah, and it's nice to hear you still got the hint of your Pimlico accent there.
I do indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
Pimlico, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so, basically, I said you're kind of about to start the UK leg of your tour. You're in Bath on the 25th.
That's right, yep.
And you're promoting your rather remarkable new album, Out of the Tunnel's Mouth.
Yeah, that's the current one at the moment. It's been out for a while, but I'm back touring this country with the tour, which is named Around the World in 80 Trains. Yeah, it's been a lot of trains, a lot of boats, a lot of planes, a lot of cars, the odd bicycle. Yeah, you know, it's been a busy time, sort of 150 dates or so, practically back to back. So, yeah, it's been sort of busiest time for years for me.
Oh, excellent. I mean, I was reading the album notes when the other day, and you're talking about the whole album's inspired by a dream that you had with a steam train crashing through the wall of your bedroom, and...
Yes.
So,
years ago, I'm afraid. Yes, I have had quite a lot of train dreams, which is probably not that surprising considering that I grew up overlooking Victoria Station, Pimlico roots again. We lived at number 13 Bridge House, Ebury Bridge, overlooking those trains. So for my teens and a good deal of my 20s, I was, you know, very familiar with the sound and the rhythm of trains. First of all, they were steam trains, and then eventually, you know, we went through diesel to electric and all the rest. So they've been with me for a long time, these trains.
so would you say you're a railway enthusiast? I'm not taking the mick because I'm one myself.
Are you really? Well, you know, the funny thing is, I used to be able to wander via Victoria Station as a kid, and they used to encourage us to hang around on our own, would you believe, at railway stations and spot things like the Golden Arrow and the odd Flying Scotsman, and yeah, so that wasn't unusual in those days.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so you're with the go back to your musical roots, because people I was doing when I was researching for this interview, the number of times that your name comes up as one of the most influential guitarists in rock music. Yeah.
It's usually said by me, of course.
Pardon?
It's usually said by me, of course.
Yeah. No, but I mean, even people like Eddie Van Halen said that he got the idea of the finger tapping on the fretboard from seeing you with Genesis.
Yeah, well, there you go. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, so where did that come from, the finger tapping? Because, you know, did anyone do it before you, or...?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I was doing that in 1971, before I'd made an album with Genesis. I was coming up with live solos for things, and I thought, oh, this would be good. I wonder if I can do this live. I wonder if I could do it in time. It seems like a really good technique. And I risked it one night, and it was in time. And then we had a lot of lines where you had keyboard and guitar doing things in harmony. So Tony was trying to sound like a guitarist, and I was trying to sound like a keyboard player. I was trying to sound like Bach, and it was a good technique, and it's cropped up on a good few fusion records since then.
Yeah, because it must have been kind of like out the blue, because I mean, I'm sort of like in my 40s now, so it's kind of like I got into the early Genesis stuff retrospectively.
Right.
But, you know, I can imagine sort of like, you know, when people brought their copy of Nursery Crime over and put it on, and then that solo section comes in the musical box. Yeah. They're going like, what on earth is that? You know?
Yeah. I know it was a good sound, and it mixed very well with keyboard. But I was trying to play something, just a line from Bach by ear. I was trying to play something off of Toccata and Fugue, and I thought, you can't do this across the strings, and let's see if it can be down on one string. So I was doing this tapping thing with the nail of my right hand and hammering on and off with the left. So it takes a while to coordinate it, but once you've got it, it's a very easy way of playing very fast.
Okay, now, when you first started out, because I've been reading, I don't know how true this is, because this is off Wikipedia, and they say they always treat Wiki with a pinch of salt. Right. But it says you've got no formal musical training at all.
That's true, yeah. I haven't got any formal musical training, but I had a good school with Genesis. I don't mean that I was literally at school with them. I didn't go to Charterhouse and all that, but I think we were quite hard on each other. We were quite hard to please, if anyone came in with a song, it had to be pretty pucker to get recorded. So I didn't really have any formal training, but I liked a lot of different things. I liked all sorts of stuff. I loved blues, which is where all the developments in the sound were coming from during the 60s. So I was growing up in the shadow of Peter Green, Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix, Jeff Beck, and you could go and see these guys practically any day of the week on our shores somewhere. So it was a great time for that. But at the same time, I was listening to Bach and Segovia, and I thought, I'll listen to that for a hobby. I don't imagine in a million years there's going to be a band that's going to be able to use both those influences. But then I reckoned without the influence of bands like Jethro Tull. I'm thinking of Procol Harum, who rarely get a mention these days, but wore their classical roots very well, I think. King Crimson, of course, lots of jazz influence. Latterly, Miles Davis, various things. Phil Collins was into big band stuff. Buddy Rich, he played me some of that. I didn't quite get it at the time, but I did subsequently. It's weird, isn't it? And then I liked folk music. Mike Rutherford liked Joni Mitchell, particularly for the guitar sound, and we sounded like a folk band in those days. We did, if something was a guitar-based number, it was normally with a lot of different 12 strings playing together, and they're murder to keep in tune for live gigs.
I know.
We used to have these marathon tuning sessions before every gig, 2 hours before every gig, tuning all these 12 strings, and then Mike would want to start again, and then he'd go, no, I'm going to restring this one, and I'd go, oh no. And we stayed the course. I was with Genesis for about 6 or 7 years, and did 8, 9, 10 albums or so with them, and there's been lots of retrospectives and compilations.
Okay, so I don't want to go on about the Genesis stuff too much, because that's kind of a lot of that's public knowledge. But when you did Voyage of the Acolyte before you left Genesis, a couple of years before you quit.
Yeah.
What was the reaction to the other guys in Genesis when you turned around and said, well, hey, look, I've got this solo album to do?
Well, Pete had already left the band. Peter Gabriel had just left, and I wanted to have something else to move on to, particularly as it looked like the band might fold at that time. Mike and Phil said they would help me with it. They were working on solo things themselves. I mean, Phil was playing on everyone's album at that time. Mike was working on something with Anthony Phillips, who was my predecessor in Genesis.
That's right, and he also plays on Tunnel's Mouth, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. So
on that last track you just played as well.
Yeah, so this was 1975, very long time ago, back in the olden days, but I was very grateful for their help, for that extraordinary rhythm section of Phil and Mike.
Now, I've got, Ian, did you say you want to come in with something? I've got a Bristol progressive rock musician, Ian Bartlett, in the studio with me as well tonight.
Hi, Ian.
Hello there, Steve. Well, I try to be a progressive rock musician in any case.
That's all right.
He plays a thing called prog. He plays what I call prog punk, which is like progressive rock with punk attitude. But anyway, Ian, did you want to come in?
Yeah. Talking of Voyage of the Acolyte, Steve.
Yeah.
A lot of fans, particularly the Genesis fans, think of that as your definitive album. But what about Steve Hackett himself? What is the album where you finished it and thought, all the pieces fit together? Was it that one, or do you have another one? Or
well, I've done about 50 or so of these things, and I lose count. Was it 40? Was it 50? Have I made 60 albums altogether, and the things I've done with other people? I'm fond of all of them in different ways. There are little things that I consider to be gems on them. It all depends where you come in. I suppose the stuff that I did with Genesis is probably the most well known, but then I know that fans tend to like Spectral Mornings a lot. Spectral Mornings, which that
is my favourite.
Well, that was my third album, and I was working recently with Stephen Wilson, who's going to be joining me for a gig coming up, and a Porcupine Tree, and he was saying that Please Don't Touch was his favourite, side 2.
That's a good one,
was, of Please Don't Touch. So when I look back at it, I think yes, Please Don't. Maybe side 2 should have been side 1, but it would have been very brave. to have started off an album with Randy Crawford. You know, what's a black girl American singer doing on a white guy's album? So, but in retrospect, you know, that's probably what I'm proud of. But I've done lots of different types of albums, and I can't really compare the acoustic ones with the electric ones because.
Yeah, two separate things, isn't it?
It's a separate thing. I did an album a few years back called Tribute, which has got 6 pieces of Bach on it, and I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of getting my fingers around that stuff. Never mind anything else. But I love all kinds of music. So I couldn't really say one album was head and shoulders above the rest. I do like the new one, as it happens.
So do we.
I feel good about that.
I think we all like that one.
Yeah.
How do you feel about how did Blues with a Feeling come about, Steve?
Well, you know, I was listening years ago to all these blues acts, and I started out life as a harmonica player. I wasn't a guitarist, first of all. When I was a little kid, I was playing mouth organ, and then after I'd given up trying to be Tommy Riley, I really fell in love with the sound of blues. I mean, the first time I heard bendy notes on the harmonica was the Stones, Little by Little, the B-side of Not Fade Away. And I thought, what is that extraordinary, spooky, mournful sound from hell? And whether it was Brian Jones or whether it was Mick playing on that one, I don't know, but there was just something about it, and I thought, if I get the right harmonica, I might be able to do that. So I was off up to Charing Cross Road and buying these things for all of 5 shillings, I think it was in those days. And I couldn't get the bloody thing in the right key. Every time I bought one, you know, I bought the sheet music and it was in the wrong key, in a piano key, you know, in E flat, wrong, you know. And then I found out, yes, you had to get an A harmonica to play in E, and so that's my blues period showing through. And Paul Butterfield, of course, I thought was the most wonderful of all blues harp players. A guy could make it sound like a trumpet, make it sound like a guitar, had it totally under control, had fantastic vibrato, extraordinary distortion, and in fact a lot of people thought that he was playing guitar. A lot of people don't draw that distinction. He was giving a lot of guitarists a run for their money in those days. Eric Clapton was a fan, Muddy Waters was a fan, and you can't get higher testament than that, can you, really?
No, not at all.
No, Steve, I was going to say, we're going back to the way you mentioned, like your first 2 post-Genesis Soda albums, Spectral Mornings and Please Don't Touch. Just got to say, I play in a band myself, and that album, we got both those albums on an old cassette. One on each side that we taped off our vinyl copies, and that normally gets played on long-distance road trips.
Right.
So on behalf of my band Alien Stash, we want to thank you for those, because you kept us entertained
on
trips to North Wales and Scotland and that. Yeah.
Glad to have kept you awake.
Yeah, no problem. Now, so about one of the things I like about your stuff, you've done your rock albums and your acoustic and your blues albums, but even within them, there's a lot of kind of different stuff going on. And then you do tracks like Ballad of a Decomposing Man or Carry On Up the Vicarage, which are very quirky, you know?
Yeah, silly stuff, yeah.
Yeah, which I think's a breath of fresh air, especially in the kind of rock progressive scene, because, you know, some of them take themselves far too seriously, yeah?
Yes, it can be very serious, a lot of the progressive stuff, can't it? It can be very po-faced, so it's nice to have a bit of comedy. Yeah,
so, coming on to the new tour now, like I said, you start, when you said you started?
Southampton on the 16th of this month.
And then you're on in early November, and the closest you're playing to us here in Bristol's in Bath at Comma Media.
That's it,
on the 25th.
On the 25th, that's right.
Yeah, so sadly, I was looking forward to coming down for that one, but I've got to go away for a family party, but I'm sending someone in my stead.
Right.
So, but anyway, what can we expect to hear on the tour?
Well, I do play, obviously, the new stuff. I don't play everything off the new album, but I try and cover the whole of the history, if not the whole of the musical spectrum. I would say it's probably 2/3 my stuff. There's about 1/3 Genesis, but it seems to creep up. You know, each time a member of the band says, like Gary, for instance, on drums, Gary O'Toole he said, "Oh, I think I can sing Watch of the Skies and play drums at the same time." And I said, well, that's extraordinary, because you got this you got this rhythm in 6 and the vocals going across it in a completely disconnected way. It's very, very hard to do, but Blow Me Down, he was able to do it. We did it in rehearsal, so that joins the set. And I've had to retire songs that I love from this set in order to bring it in at a sensible time.
Do you ever get sort of frustrated that, when you're touring new material, and you still get people standing in the audience shouting musical box or giant hogweed or stuff is ready,
The funny thing is, just as regards the giant hogweed, the High Voltage Festival in the summer, I played with Transatlantic. I did their closing number of the night with them, which was Return of the Giant Hogweed, and they do a cracking version of that. And,
I could imagine.
They do it a little bit faster than the Genesis version, and it was very, very good. So that's around. I think it's on YouTube as well.
We're going to look.
I've seen a version there. So
it's on Whirlwind. It's on the bonus disc on Whirlwind, the Return of the Giant Hogweed.
Oh, it's Steve on it.
I don't think Steve's on it, but you're right, Mr. Hackett. It is fast.
Yes, I know they've recorded a version and they put it out themselves. But there's this live version. So I believe they've done a DVD of or they are doing a DVD of their show. And what you see is what you get. Nothing's changed.
Because of course you played with Mr. Morris on Question Mark album as well, didn't you?
That's right. Yes, yeah. Very nice to work with him, and he does a cracking job. Funny enough, on Return of the Giant Hogweed, very good vocal.
Always reminds me of John Lennon in a little way.
Sorry?
Reminds me a little of John Lennon. So got a bit of John Lennon.
Yeah, there's something of that, isn't there? Yes, John Lennon. Yeah. To mention an extraordinary talent or two. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Steve. We're going to sort of have to wind up in a minute because we don't want to keep your good self and run your phone bill up too high. Would you like to select a track off the new album to play out on?
Sure. What about the second track, Nomads? That sort of goes from acoustic, flamenco to rock, all in the same tune.
I've got to admit, my favourite track on the album is Tubehead.
Tubehead. Oh, we'll play that one. There.
Well, I played that one last week. The trail this week's interview.
My favourite one is what's the? Can I have a look at the thing?
We're going to play more tracks later. Don't worry.
Okay. Well,
my particular favourite is Emerald and Ash.
That's Emerald and Ash. Yeah,
I love that one.
Yeah, and Ian's wife just come running into the studio, giving him the thumbs up, saying Emerald and Ash. We'll do that in the second half of the show, Steve.
Okay.
Anyway, we'll let you go because you're a busy man.
Nice to talk to you guys.
Like I said, we'll have to come in and chat again sometime.
I certainly will.
Okay, Steve, thanks very much. You're a gentleman, you're a legend, and you're one of the world's greatest guitarists, and we thank you for your time.
Basically, thank you for all the great music you've given us over the years, and we hope for many years to come we shall be treated to more.
Well, you're too kind. Thank you very much.
And would you like to introduce Nomads before you go?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so this is me, Steve Hackett, phoning in my part from the moon here, but now I'm phoning you from Twickenham. This is off my album Out of the Tunnel's Mouth, and it's called Nomads.
Okay, Steve Hackett, thanks.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Cheers.